Good Tuesday afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is another episode of From the Cheap Seats Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Branson. We talk on here from a combat veteran's perspective, the art, the performance art, and sport that is professional wrestling. I'm just gonna get right into it because it's gonna be kind of condensed, kind of working off some of my notes from the last couple of days and whatnot. Obviously, there's news in the professional wrestling business. There's also, some on screen drama we're going to talk about. Also, we're going to talk about Double or Nothing. Double or Nothing was actually a really good show. A lot of fans have a disconnect between the TV and pay-per-view. Marination versus execution of the meal. Can't believe I just used a food reference in talking about professional wrestling. Besides that, though, one of the wonderful many things that professional wrestling gives us is entertainment. And it was full of entertainment. It was full of athletic endeavors as these male and female men and women athletes that are a part of AEW like to put on television. I was pleasantly surprised with a lot of things. There were some things that could have been done better, but all in all, like I said, it was a good pay-per-view. Now, just going over a few of the matches here that happened to be on the show. The Acclaimed versus the Cage of Agony. I guess, Mogul Nation or Mogul Embassy is gone. Well, yeah, they are. But the point behind my use of terminology, the combination of names in regards to groups, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It'll grow. And it'll probably grow on me, but we'll see. Of course, the Acclaimed don't have to speak for daddy ass Billy Gunn or Max Caster or Anthony Bones. They already show you on TV how they get business done. But, now that we're seeing a post Embassy Cage of Agony group emerge, it was trying to set them on the right foot in regards to further storylines, whether it be trios, anything else, during the course of the coming days, weeks, months, and years with AEW. The finish had you thinking one team was going over, and then at the end, of course, the team that I thought was going to win, the Acclaimed, gets the W. It was a really good match. Really sold the Bowens leg injury real well, and the eventual save. I mean, Anthony Bowens is like the gay John Cena. He shows up when the moment is right, and he saves the day. Probably looks fabulous doing it too, but Next, up for review, Deonna Purrazzo versus Thunder Rosa. It was a little rough. I believe I had Deonna Purrazzo in the other episode going over Thunder Rosa, even though, honestly, these two, they're great and remarkably talented in-ring competitors in the women's division. It just seemed like, it was more of a clash of styles than a melding of the styles to make a quality match. I think Give them some time, probably on Collision, Rampage, not just Dynamite and a pay-per-view, and you'll get a better result, better product out of the two. It didn't hit me the way it should, and I am a fan of Deonna Purrazzo, admittedly. So here's hoping that those two get to clash again, and that the next time they get in the ring with each other, make some tremendous magic, because I know those two are destined for great things within the realm of AEW. Then I believe you had, let's see here, and I believe it closed the pre-show. I might be wrong. And I'm just going off my list here. It's not in any direct order. It's not in the direct order how the pay-per-view went. So I'm just going to jump from match to match, whether it was the top of the card or the bottom of the card. See here, the Bang Bang Gang and Death Triangle. Welcome back, Juice Robinson, if he ever watches this. Glad to see that he's back in a professional wrestling setting. He's a rather well produced talent in regards to his skills and how he was trained and where he's been in the world. It's just nice to see him back. The beau of the Timeless One off screen. But a little bit of a man when he's on. So glad to see him back. I still have this feeling that Jay White should be doing singles matches and not a trios run. But I'm not Tony Khan. I'm not the powers that be. So I'm just allowed to have an opinion. That's it. End of story. It was a really good match. Obviously, all 6 competitors delivered what they needed to in regards to the end result. Death Triangle, I'm not going to necessarily hit on the negatives of calling a group Death Triangle when a lot of times that should be renamed the Job Triangle, because honestly, Penta and Pac and Ray Fenix should be more feared instead of, hey, this is a feeder team to push the champions along. It was a good match, and I'm not taking away from that though. It's just, it seems like the trios titles on Jay White, not necessarily on the Guns, but on Jay White, seems like something is missing, or somebody just doesn't have the faith the rest of the company does in Jay White to do his part to benefit his singles career. And that's not saying that, hey, something is wrong with Jay White. It's just, honestly, before Will Ospreay, I thought Jay White would be holding some singles gold, or some relevant singles gold. And we are still waiting for that to happen. It will one day, but it's still waiting to happen. After that, I've got on the sheet Hook, Shibata, and Jericho for the blank the world, or for the world if you're Chris Jericho. This match kind of, and I know Hook and Shibata are really good talents, really good wrestlers. This match missed, and I mean missed, for me. Brian Keith, Big Bill. I get that, you're saddling Jericho with another faction of talent that need to get over. And if anything, Jericho is the guy you want to get talent over with. Cool. But, you know, the fans really do not have a need for Chris Jericho anymore. It's almost like he's oversaturating what you see on television by his presence alone. You know, I think Shibata should have won. That way, it would have moved a feud in it from Hook and Jericho to Hook and Shibata, so that you could really, between the two of those men, kind of see where they're at feud wise and how well they would pair together in a feud against each other. But at the end of the day, the Learning Tree Chris Jericho retains the For the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, it's, yeah. Or, you know, AEW's version of the BMF. Really wouldn't say that Chris Jericho is necessarily a BMF. Next on my little sheet list of things, the former best friends grudge match between Orange Cassidy and Trent Beretta. Orange comes out looking a little darker, different version of the glasses. No more aviators, and now we are into Ray-Bans. So, and Orange was wearing black. Maybe there was and it's silly to say, I'm going to get my joke of the day out. You know, with Orange in a black t-shirt and black glasses. Is he trying to flash Trent Beretta with forgetting who he is at the end of that match? It was pretty hard hitting between two, as any grudge match would be. Trent Beretta is a very good talent that has been stuck in some very secondary positions. The man can go. He shows it. He has shown it over the duration of his career, whether it be WWE, Japan, AEW, wherever he has been. He is good. And you're going to say, but Chris, you say everybody's good. Trent Beretta, if I could make a comparison to anybody in professional wrestling that should get their flowers more often than not, I would compare Trent to Matt Cardona. You know, Trent left WWE back about a decade ago, I believe. I might be wrong on the timing. And he went to Japan, and of course, he's competed for other companies since then. And he's been able to better his craft. You know, WWE between 2000 and I'd say 5 to the time Vince decided to let go of the creative reins to Paul Levesque, you could say a lot about how creative, stymied, and disillusioned a lot of talent with Paul Levesque. Now, obviously, you see that there are branches to the tree. Kind of like if anybody's watched the Disney Plus Loki television show, you're seeing the sacred timeline. I know I've mentioned the sacred timeline on here before, you know, but the beauty of professional wrestling is the branches of said sacred timeline, the teases, the hints to certain things. They're coming. Honestly, Trent Beretta is too good of a singles wrestler for him not to be carrying some gold or being at least somewhat an important piece to the company on whatever show he's on. That being said, Don Callis, if you listen to this ever, don't care if you do, to reel in Orange Cassidy or potentially to turn Orange Cassidy to the Don Callis dark side, That's going to be interesting. I don't know. I'm going to look forward to Wednesday and watching to see what happens there. The IWGP Heavyweight Championship Eliminator. The one thing I hate about the Eliminators is what is the point of said match when you can throw the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on a pay-per-view, have it defended by its champion, who is Jon Moxley, and just call it a championship match with Konosuke Takeshita. Why? Why couldn't we do that? I think the match itself fell flat. These are two very strong style based professional wrestlers. Mox is a little bit more of a hardcore wrestler uh, by trade, more of a brawler, but in the same, Mox can go. Mox can be technical if he needs to be. But this was a brawl. This is what these two have been leading up over the weeks and months that they have ever clashed with each other, and that's what this match was. Sometimes it was a little hard to watch because even with the rest holds and Mox having to sell the shoulder injury from the previous night before, you have to broke around an injury, whether it's kayfabe or it's real. So obviously Mox won. Mox is going on to, I believe, Dominion, New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dominion, to defend the title against Evil, while Konosuke swims in the sea of AEW to the next island, and the next professional wrestler he starts a war with. But I don't see the Don Callis family and the Blackpool Combat Club being remotely done at all. No, I don't. Let's see here. The barbed wire cage match. And we'll get into the post effects of said match here in a moment. But the match was sold as kind of, in fans' minds inside the internet wrestling community, that this was potentially Malachi Black's last actual match for AEW. Now, I'm unsure of what his contract is, so if he is headed to WWE, if it's soon, if it's 6 months from now, the cards will play itself. But for right now, talking AEW, it was a really subtly built feud between the two. The taking of the wedding ring between Adam and Beth. The introduction of the barbed wire, and then the mention of the barbed wire match. Plus the play that possibly the House of Black was turning into, as Adam said it, the House of Blood. And at one point during the match, it did seem like it was going to happen. It looked like it, and I was almost sold that Malachi Black was getting okey doked by his stablemates. Obviously, that isn't exactly how it went. But the use of the barbed wire steel cage, sometimes it's hit, sometimes it's missed. Between the two, it really sold as an accessory, an additional weapon to the match, which is what it's supposed to be. The cage itself is a weapon. And if Tony Khan ever hears this, please secure the corners of the ring to, and mind you, there was no escape stipulation so they could just come in, go out of the cage freely. But even then, still having the ring posts in the cage kind of secured to each other makes that gimmick, the steel cage, that much more dangerous, that much more sinister on TV. Now, talking about a portion of the match which, was pretty much close to the finish, and before the House of Black and a certain blast from Adam Copeland's past in WWE. There was a spot where Adam Copeland came down to elbow drop Malachi Black through a table wrapped in barbed wire, so on and so forth. And it ended up with a now 50-year-old Adam Copeland spending about the next 4 to 6 months recovering from said injury. Obviously, the TNT Championship will likely be made vacant. So if Vacant's listening, congratulations on yet another championship in another company. Adam Copeland goes over, but injuries suck. I think from watching the video of him explaining what happened, I think naming his crutches Brody and Buddy were pretty funny. And like I said, we'll see where that's going. With Julia Hart out, also, the House of Black is back down to 3 instead of the 4 that it has been. But I kind of expect that the House of Black itself is going to start winding down if the future free agency rumors are true, or the returns of certain talent back to WWE. Let's not speculate that till it happens, but if it does, cool on them. If not, professional wrestling has 2 really good talents still in its midst at AEW. The show starter of that show, which show starter, show stealer, however you want to line it up, Will Ospreay, the aerial assassin, versus the king of the backbreakers, Roderick Strong from the Undisputed Kingdom. What talk about a hot way to start a pay-per-view. Roderick Strong can go. Will Ospreay can go. They can throw moves together. You still see the Don Callis influence by trying to resurrect, reinstate, whatever, get it into Will Ospreay's mind that to bring back the Tiger Driver, to put away Roderick Strong. At the end of the day, but between the action, the interference with the kingdom, and then obviously the spots that these two are going to hit on each other, it was a 4-star, 4.5-star match between each other to start the night. It pushed right next into the next segment. Obviously, like I said, Undisputed Kingdom. Into the return, or at least the promo return, of Adam Cole, baby. And a little bit of story time. Talking about how, despite the injury, he's not done with a certain devil, but that he's going to put away the devil mask and only need it when it's required. That being said, I'd like to welcome back the Wolf of Professional Wrestling, the devil himself, everybody's favorite scumbag, MJF, back to the walls, or within the walls, of an AEW arena and an AEW pay-per-view. The promo he threw together is pure MJF, with a lot of colorful language. If you watched, you already know what I'm talking about. But it's good to see MJF back. MJF is really AEW's ace in the hole. And amongst the pillars, him and Darby Allin. And God bless Darby Allin for the stuff that young man puts his body through. But it's glad to see that the Wolf is back. And the choice of return gear, as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. MJF, nice nod to, a certain 2002 Madison Square Garden return. Excuse me, Madison Square Garden. MSG, the world's most famous arena. Okay, I'm done giving them their pop. But it's glad to see that back. Toni Storm and Serena Deeb. It was technical. It was hard hitting. It was strong style. It was what you don't necessarily see in a women's match, and that's what it made it good. They gave them 20 minutes to go. And in that 20 minutes, which ironically, 18 minutes with Toni Storm and Serena Deeb is the longest, whether on Dynamite, Collision, Rampage, Dark, or any AEW pay-per-view that the women have been given. And it's about an average, I believe, of 12 minutes. 1 or 1 1/4 segments is what the women have been getting. And it was a well-booked show. Or, excuse me, it was a well-booked match. The finish of the match, to get a top rope Storm Zero, and then to repeat said Storm Zero, to finish on Serena Deeb, after Mariah May looked like she potentially might have been turning on Toni by trying to pull an Arnold Skolin on her. If anybody knows who Arnold Skolin is, go look up on the WWE function there on your Peacock or the network or Netflix or wherever you get your WWE content, and go look up Arnold Skolin and Bob Backlund. Enough said. And a real quick shout out, to the late great Sheiky baby. I put Hulk Hogan in Clemmer Clutch. I make him humble. That was like the world's worst Sheik imitation. Sorry, Sheik, I'll never do it again. I'm pretty sure I'm a jabroni right now. It was really, really, really good women's match. And the women's match that was part of the triple main event was also really good. Willow Nightingale has shown that she has blossomed and matured into a talent that they can trust. And especially the personal look of the feud between her and Mercedes Moné, going after each other's ankles, feet, really going and hard hitting each other, was a good touch to the match. It was a way for the two of them to kind of revisit that match in New Japan, but also have their own spin on it in AEW. Obviously, we have a brand new TBS champion in Mercedes Moné, but we also have a brand new faction stable split, now seeing Stokely Hathaway and Chris Statlander turning heel, breaking away from Willow, and I'm going to be excited to see what those two do in a ring against each other. Willow and Chris Statlander are absolutely great female talent. Can't wait to see what we're going to get on our TV, whether it's on television or a pay-per-view, because those matches are coming. Stokely, as the manager and think tank for Chris Statlander, is going to make Chris Statlander that much better a heel in the long run for AEW. So I'm looking forward to what a heel Chris Statlander does to see whether she kind of sides with a certain DMD and the people, the chief hater in charge. If you get my use of vernacular in regards to hinting to two women that we haven't seen in a while. The next triple main event match, and I got why they booked it this way as far as the main event. It was those three matches were well done. Swerve Strickland, I said early in the week or last week, did not think he needed to lose the title. Why do I say this? Because Swerve Strickland is a guy that, yes, you can build a company around. You give him the right push, the right momentum. Let him be the needle mover. Let him reach out into the casual audience and show them why they should be tuning into AEW. Then you have a seasoned veteran that is a first ballot Hall of Famer, regardless of where he goes or who he wrestles for, in Christian Cage. And Cage made Swerve look like $1 billion. Swerve was already worth $1 million. After that match and the moves and the spots that were hit, especially with the patriarchy being involved, Christian's selling of Swerve's kicks, stomps, and sometimes moves you haven't seen Swerve necessarily use in a match, made Swerve look 10 billion times better than the previous match with anybody. Christian Cage knows how to get the best out of the person he stands across the ring with. And that's what he got out of a Swerve Strickland. Swerve retaining the AEW Heavyweight Championship was the right move, is going to continue to be the right move as long as you book him strong enough to overcome these future feuds against heels. One of these days, he might be a heel champion. Who knows? And then he's the one being chased. But to kind of show his resiliency and his ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome, Swerve, if you ever get a chance to watch this, you know what I mean. You've heard that vernacular before. Swerve Strickland is still your AEW Heavyweight Champion, and it was the right move, the right decision. And I look forward to watching his future feuds, whether it's still staying with Christian into Forbidden Door or we're moving on to somebody else, maybe somebody from New Japan, leading into Forbidden Door. Then the main event of the night, the Anarchy in the Arena match between the Elite of Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the Young Bucks, Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, and the Scapegoat, Jack Perry, versus FTR, Bryan Danielson, and Darby Allin. Now, when you say Anarchy, that's exactly what that match was. They're just 8 men beating the dog snot out of each other, utilizing the arena to their advantage to get the point across to each other. The spots where you see things in regards to throwing Jack Perry into an ice bucket. If I'm Jack Perry right now, I'm donating money to the ALS since he took a live ice bucket challenge, or ice tub challenge as you would call it in this moment, which I believe is the retardant that was on his body. It was applied to his body in that moment, but who knows? The fact that we thought Darby got ran over by a bus again, mind you, a party bus, and then what more can you say about Darby Allin except for the young man earns his money? Why do I say he earns his money? Well, he's willing to be hung upside down, use a flamethrower, get ran over, get thrown through glass. Huh. What else? Darby Allin, yes, is a human demolition derby. He is the ghost of Evil Knievel. If Evil Knievel lent his spirit to somebody. FTR, still one of the best tag teams in the game. You know, they took it to the Bucks, tried their damnedest to even take it to Kazuchika Okada and Bryan Danielson. What else needs to be said about Bryan Danielson? He is one of the best wrestlers in the world, if not the best wrestler in the world between how many ever companies. And his inclusion, as it's being believed, is closing soon his full-time participation in a professional wrestling ring. This was one of those matches where it was good to have him in and a part of. Gives everybody a chance to see he's not just technical or high flying, but that he can scrap it up with everybody in that ring. I kind of thought that Tony Khan might have been turning heel, pulling an Eric Bischoff on the AEW crowd and the locker room. That might be waiting, who knows? But at the end of the day, the Elite defeated Team AEW, which, this will continue to further the us versus them storyline, the EVPs, and the Elite versus the owner and his talent. I kind of hope that in the coming weeks with Collision and Dynamite and Rampage, that these feuds, that whether they continue or that they're taking a break or ending as of Sunday, will breathe a little more. The psychology and the speed for which they're booking those moments and working into those moments get a little more time and a little more chance for the shock value of the moment. But all in all, Double or Nothing delivered, like the last couple pay-per-views, except World's End. Hint, hint, wink, wink. I really don't have that many negatives. So I'm looking forward to Wednesday to see what they're going to do for Dynamite. And I will review Dynamite on, as well as NXT on Friday. Still kind of waiting for some personal things to happen. So a Wednesday show is not out of the question. But since it is Tuesday and it is post-Memorial Day and yada, 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 and so on and so forth, I may just save that till Friday in regards to preview of that. Let's see here. What is next on the list of things to do? Monday Night Raw was a little methodical this week. It was a little slow-paced. Not that that's bad, but, sometimes chaos breeds cash or controversy or whatever you want to saddle Eric Bischoff term here about. They started the show with the now King General of the ring, Gunther, who in about 120 days, give or take, no, maybe under 60 now, a little above or under 60 now, has a shot at the World Heavyweight Championship, or the respective top champion of their brand, along with Nia Jax over on SmackDown. We got the same old, hey, I bring prestige to these moments, which he is not necessarily wrong. And yeah, excuse me while Shatter plays in the background here. But of course, they're setting up for, and remember how I said that Triple H has been good about booking Raw or WWE television like an episode of Loki where you get your branches and pieces and everything else. That they're setting up potentially for a Damian Priest versus Gunther match at SummerSlam. They could be diverging off to Drew McIntyre versus Gunther. The likelihood is that CM Punk is going to be cleared by the time Clash of the Castle happens and cost Drew McIntyre his match against Damian Priest. So there are many options as to how this is going to go. Or Drew McIntyre faces the other three in a match come SummerSlam. I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're going to do it. I mean, hell, maybe Gunther options to use the crown or his king status like a Money in the Bank and just shows up at Clash of the Castle and, cashes in his opportunity a month, obviously, before or a few weeks before Money in the Bank in Toronto. So who knows? Quite a possibility. That match or that segment led into Braun and JD McDonough, or JD McFunko, as Braun is so affectionately known to call JD. It was a good match between a super heavyweight and a cruiserweight. JD got some offense in. I thought it was going to be a squash match. He was able to take it to Braun's legs, which Braun's legs, he'll even admit, are his weakest point. Sometimes it's not easy being 6'8" and 300 some odd pounds. So Braun Strowman goes over on JD McDonough and then proceeds to chase him probably around Savannah, Georgia, at least once or twice before JD and Braun make it back to the arena. So, and shout out to the Savannah Bananas. I know they were on the show last night. If you ever get a chance to watch those guys, incredibly entertaining baseball team, traveling baseball team. As Michael Cole or Pat McAfee said, the Harlem Globetrotters of the baseball world. That's exactly what they are. Oh, you can hear my knuckle-headed canine in the background there. But really good match between the two. Really sold me on the fact that there will be more between those two. Can't wait. Ricochet and Ilya Dragunov. You throw those two in a ring, you're gonna get quality television. You're probably gonna get a decently rated segment. Those two can go. You don't turn the TV, change the channel when they wrestle. It was the match that we all expected those two would have on any given Monday night or Saturday night for PLE. But the wild card here, obviously, at the end of the match was Braun Breaker, and Braun Breaker furthering his attack on Ricochet. It's going to be interesting to see where all three play into each other. I know Adam Pearce is trying to teach Braun Breaker a lesson by reminding him not to do some of the insane things that he has been getting away with on Monday Night Raw and getting fined and suspended for, obviously. But obviously, we're going to get two feuds against Braun Breaker out of that. And I'm kind of intrigued to see where this is going to go, especially if it feeds into an Intercontinental Championship program later on with Sami Zayn down the road. The New Day and Karrion Kross, along with Awesome Truth, shot a pre-show vignette. Obviously, Truth found himself another gig, as he does most nights on Monday Night Raw or in WWE in general. This time had Miz dress up like the good humor guy, and we're trying to sell ice cream. I think that was a drumstick that Miz had in his hand. to the New Day. Of course, the New Day were asking about when they're going to get a shot at the World Tag Team Championships that Austin Truth hold. And then on comes a Raven. And when I mean a Raven, a bird of destruction, a harbinger of sinister things to come in Karrion Kross. And it's going to be very interesting to see Karrion Kross's influence and who he influences to split from one or the other. I kind of think you're going to see Xavier Woods branch off. I'd hate to see New Day go by the wayside, but New Day has been a tag team for a decade. And a lot of times you don't get tag teams and factions that last a decade unless your name is the Four Horsemen or Generation X. At least actively on TV. So that's going to be very interesting to see where that's going, along with the match next week with the New Day and AOP. Or as Xavier Woods referenced them, Toka and Razor. Anybody knows any Secret of the Ooze Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 trivia, you've won 100 points. All kidding aside, I don't want to see New Day get squashed by AOP, which that's what it looks like. And I really don't want to see New Day get over on AOP, because if you're really going to make the Final Testament a threat in WWE on Raw, you kind of cannot book it to where at the end of the day, that's the end result. So, Next, of course, mentioning AOP, they had a 3.5, 4-minute match against the Creeds. Now, the Creeds, this tag team from NXT that's trying to find its feet on Raw, the former Diamond Mine along with Ivy now, kind of stuck in a rut right now. And, the rumor and belief that, when Chad Gable decides to divorce himself from Alpha Academy, that the direction is he'll pick up those three talent. I'm kind of waiting for the snap. You can kind of see it in their demeanor, their behavior, their attitude here lately. Ivy now doesn't look as happy-go-lucky, friendly in her focus modes as she did in months past on TV. I think Clash of the Castle is probably when we're going to see Team Gable or Diamond Mine or a darker, heelish Alpha Academy emerge. Of course, Lotus and Tozawa and Maxine Dupree won't be a part of it anymore, but, that's the faction that it needs to be if Alpha Academy is to remain heel. Following that match, you had essentially the female breakout star of Monday Night Raw so far, Lyra Valkyria, up against Image Control's Kairi Sane. Kairi came out there with Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai tried to play a part in the match, but at the end of the day, Lyra was able to overcome Kairi and her amazing offense. And yes, I'm a Kairi Sane kind of fan. I'm not a big Joshi fan, but some of the Joshi talent that has come to WWE and Japanese wrestlers in general, if you book them right and you treat them right, the product they put on TV is just like, the porridge that Goldilocks finds, just right. Following that match, you had a very interesting fit of anger from Io Sky. And I get it. She feels that she wasn't pinned 1, 2, 3 leading into the finals of the Queen of the Ring. And okay, cool. It just furthers Damage Control versus Lyra these next coming weeks. Probably going to get the payoff match at Clash at the Castle. But this is where I also kind of see Lyra Valkyria potentially being Miss Money in the Bank at the Money in the Bank PLE there in Toronto in July. I'm gonna sit on that one. I'm gonna sit on that one and let that ruminate. I think that's gonna be where they're going with Money in the Bank this year. Of course, after that you have Rey Mysterio and Carlito facing off against each other. Of course, the obvious Judgment Day LWO interference into the match. And, we're now getting to see Damian Priest kind of go, okay, y'all are failing to do what I tell you to do. I'm just going to come out there and wreck everybody's week. Carlito's trying to fit into Judgment Day. Carlito's trying to get his ass kicked by LWO. Carlito is just that monkey in the middle of two ongoing feuds, two branching stories that, I get it. He is a part player in the longer play. So it'll be interesting to see where this LWO Judgment Day renewed feud come in. You had Otis versus Bronson Reed, which those two big men can throw a 5-star classic together and outweigh said 5-star classic by about 600 pounds. The bumps they took, you don't have to sit there and like big men wrestling, but when it's done right, when two big men can go at it and have fun, and the moves and the spots all kind of fit the match that they need to put together and build, sometimes it's better than watching a cruiserweight match from back in the day, or watching a main event match with two marquee talent. Otis, we already know how good Otis is. If they benefit off his size down the road and let him run significantly for a singles title, I wouldn't be shocked if he isn't mentioned as Intercontinental World Champion at some point. Same thing with Bronson Reed. Obviously, the match ends with Bronson Reed going over on Otis via I'm going to try to do my best way Barrett. Tsunami! My $5 check will be in the mail there, Wade. But it's more interesting what happened after the match. Sami Zayn coming out as the hero babyface, which right now fits Sami Zayn. This is a Sami Zayn with a championship a la 2014-15 Sami Zayn, where, he's a babyface that, even with a championship, can help other babyfaces overcome the heel in the storyline. So inspiring them to kind of go, you know what? Screw you, Chad. We're done with you. Kind of leading to yet another dance between Chad Gable and Sami Zayn down the line, whether it's next week or at Clash at the Castle, is yet to be seen. But I think Clash at the Castle might be where Sami drops the Intercontinental title to Chad Gable. And that, like I said, where the new Alpha Academy or Diamond Mine or whatever they decide to call the group from there on out, it'll be interesting. Otis, I'm just waiting for that man to allow him to put the rocket boosters to his ass and just move on to greater things within WWE. Then you had the steel cage match. Now, prototypical steel cage match, use of the steel cage as a weapon, throwing each other into the cage, Liv and Becky going back and forth on each other, which they have some pretty decent chemistry inside that ring. But, mind you, is yet again another segment where Judgment Day has its fingers in the pie. Obviously, Dom didn't like the finish there in Saudi for when Liv won it against Becky then. And of course, the underlying story was Becky, had she not won, was leaving WWE on the end of her contract, which more than likely she'll be back in WWE. But that woman's taking a long, well-deserved vacation with her daughter, with her husband. Those two have saddled themselves carrying WWE for the last about 4 or 5 years, along with Roman Reigns. So those two people deserve the break that they're getting. But it's what happened after the match, and obviously the ever-present inclusion of Dominic Mysterio at the end of the match, getting bumped by Braun Strowman into the door, costing Becky Lynch an opportunity to escape from the cage, and winning Liv Morgan the match at the end of the night. But it's the spot afterwards. Okay. And obviously, the American fans, we all got screwed and cut off. Now, apparently, some services stayed on long enough to catch it, others didn't. I have Dish Network, and Dish Network, we unfortunately did not get the chance to see the moment, but Canada and international fans got to watch Liv Morgan lock lips with a very, I wouldn't say he was disgusted per se. It didn't really, it was like more like he was already disgusted with himself. It was just more of the shock of the moment kind of thing. But obviously, it's going to lead to something, especially now that Mommy Rhea Ripley has seen it. So I'm pretty sure it just throws gasoline on that fire. So when Rhea comes back, the forthcoming grudge match between those two for the championship is going to be that much more exciting and that much more hard hitting. Might be a little more stiff too. Just depends on how they get booked to work. Interesting times we live in. Real quick preview on NXT because I don't want to stay on here too long today. Obviously, we're going to get more NXT qualifier matches. Michin, I believe, versus Tatum Paxley, and Kalani Jordan versus, I forget who Kalani Jordan's facing tonight. But I know she's not thrilled if she loses to her. Can't remember her name, but it'll come to me. They're going to obviously further the OC storyline against Nathan Fraser and Axiom for those tag team championships. It's kind of nice to see the OC getting used there in NXT to either help put over talent or, kind of get their own shine for a little bit because they're not on the big screen up there on SmackDown and Raw being used. Joe Coffey and Gallus, along with his brother Mark and brother in kind, Scottish brother in kind, Wolfgang. We're going to see where and why they're getting themselves into the men's two biggest title matches, or at least in those divisions there on NXT, whether it's North American Championship. Obviously, you got Oba Femi you've got Josh Briggs and Joe Coffey and Wesley. Sorry, Wes. Wesley, obviously they fought each other this last week. Joe Coffey and Wesley got the double pin, so they're going to go off to Battleground to face Obafemi for the North American Championship there at the UFC Apex Arena Gym Performance Center for the UFC there in Las Vegas. But kind of want to know why Noam Dar was attacked by Gallus, or was he? We'll see tonight. Kind of looking forward to see how they further the Dante Chen now that he's getting time. Now, Dante Chen, I believe, is the first Singaporean-born WWE wrestler in the company's history. Might be right, might be wrong. But it is nice to see that that Robert Stone isn't getting set into another heel managerial role for right now. That he's showing his chops as a babyface as well, even outside losing Von Wagner to the wonderful Endeavor's word. Um, and then obviously we're gonna see Trick and Noam Dar and see where that's going, especially with how Lash Legend factors into all this, along with the rest of the metaphor. But the match, or at least the feud I'm looking forward to, is between two past MMA fighters, Shayna Baszler and Lola Vice, or Valerie Loretta. I don't mean to butcher her last name. Leading up to NXT Underground, which is kind of an offshoot on Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. They're in Las Vegas coming June 9th. That match might be really good, and it'd be one of the few times that WWE gets away with utilizing a more stiff MMA style presentation in regards to strikes, kicks, holds. It may just be a street fight. It may just be, somebody gets hit with a lucky kick or a punch. I don't know how they're going to book it. I would say it's probably going to be booked more shoot than it is going to be worked, but obviously those kinds of matches are worked shoots. But I'm actually looking forward to that tonight more than anything else. That from there, we're going to move right into the Scuttlebutt Sessions. Now, I know I've talked about tribalism in professional wrestling before, and I used to be that tribalist fan. I used to be. Mind you, I love WWE more than I did WCW, but I watched both products. And then when everybody, like TNA came into the picture, Ring of Honor came into the picture, Evolve, Revolver, Gorilla, you name it. When more of the national, international products, the NWA, and now AEW came into the picture, I'll admit I still lived in some level of tribalism in regards to being a loyalist to WWE. Now, as I've gotten older, I've been able to watch all the products. And here's the common denominator with this. There are a lot of people employed. There are a lot of people making paychecks. There are a lot of people making money right now. So if you're really mad about a product or you hate a product, that man or woman that's on that television screen, and I'm not saying this because I want to get brownie points from one company or the other. It doesn't matter the company. They're feeding their family. They're making a livelihood. Yes, you might not look like some of what their company is putting on television. You might kind of feel loyal to one wrestler or another who got fired over, childish behaviors of other talent, allegedly. I get it. But in turn, you hurt those who are just trying to make an honest dollar from professional wrestling and kind of really trying to be, that next Roman Reigns, that next Cody Rhodes, that next Swerve Strickland, Samoa Joe, Kenny Omega, so on and so forth, a main event talent. But stop. Yeah, WWE is not everybody's cup of tea, nor is AEW. Neither is TNA, New Japan, Stardom, you name it. I'm not going to go throughout a long list of companies that are out there and what they do to benefit the professional wrestling community and the business itself. But, there's also, and I hope Dustin Rhodes gets a chance to listen to this. I would love to interview him, put over, I mean, he really doesn't need his Wrestling Academy put over, but it from the stuff that I have seen online, he is doing a really good job with the young talent of tomorrow for professional wrestling, regardless of where they go. Dustin Rhodes is correct. Enjoy it. Because had the pandemic gone the other direction, professional wrestling, along with other things, could have gone to the wayside. There could be people looking for new professions that all they know is the profession smacking backs on plywood boards and bouncing heads off steel chairs. You know, plus wrestling itself is mainstream more now than ever. Whether you work for the WWE, AEW, or any other company, there's a lot more exposure to their talent that wasn't there before. If you give it a fair eye, there's going to be things you like and things you don't. Try to give it a chance before you really shoot down it. Quit with the tribalism. Quit worrying about what Tony Khan says or Triple H says or this person here on a podcast says, even me. Stop listening to the negative. Try to affirm and build a positive. Because long term, I don't see a lot of these companies disappearing overnight. I don't. So give it a chance. Let's see here. Mark Henry. Mark Henry this week announced that he is leaving AEW for other ventures, whether it be professional wrestling or personal. I read something today, some AEW fan, neckbeard, whatever, or somebody labeled him a traitor. A traitor. Who did he betray? You know, Mark Henry is a WWE Hall of Famer, Professional Wrestling Hall of Famer, I believe. I also believe he's a member of the Cauliflower Alley Club. So, wherever that man has competed, whether in powerlifting, professional wrestling, or whatever else he does that he is a champion in, he's a 3-time champion. He's a champion in 3 different sports. So, that tells you anything. Put some respect on Mark Henry's name. Mr. Mark Henry, the president, CEO, and founder of the Hall of Pain. The man has an incredible eye for talent. So whether he lends his talents to back to WWE, he takes a risk and goes to TNA and brings them a bigger eye on the product. Wherever Mark Henry goes, and he's shown this over the years, he brings quality to what we see on TV. Go ask Bianca Belair. Go ask Jade Cargill. Go ask Samantha Irvin. If we had no Mark Henry, we'd have never had Samantha Irvin. You know, that man deserves his flowers. And I, for one, as a fellow Texan and Longhorn fan, that really doesn't mean a hill of beans in the professional wrestling conversation. But as a fellow Texan, that man will always have my respect. No matter what. Whether he's a babyface, a heel, an on-screen, an off-screen, behind-the-scenes guy. As long as he can continue to contribute to the industry and the art that is professional wrestling, the sports art that is professional wrestling, he is just looking to try new things. Let him try it. He's not betraying AEW by leaving AEW. He is also a father and a husband. So he may be taking time to take care of himself and his family, especially with one of his children going on to college here soon there at the University of Oklahoma. University of Oklahoma is getting a really good wrestling talent in Jacob Henry. So, would you chill on the Mark Henry hate? Uh, Going back to the Raw review and the kiss. Now, I get it. USA sometimes agrees and disagrees to give WWE an overrun. And had USA probably known that we were going to get a kiss and known that we were within a window of timing that it needed to happen in, probably would have given them the time to finish the show outright. I'm kind of glad that TSN and other avenues, streaming avenues, satellite, whatever, caught on to that final portion of the end of the show last night. But, hopefully this isn't also a hint as to how things are going to go between now and December/January. Now that, obviously Raw is going to continue for those final 12 weeks going into January when they move to Netflix. But, and obviously I say this even though SmackDown will be returning back to USA and apparently back to a Friday night slot. So we'll see how things transpire in regards to future overruns. I see language is allowed to be used a little bit more freely and colorfully by not just broadcaster, but by talent. So maybe there is a little bit more light at the end of the PG era tunnel that we're getting to start to see with more PG-14 kind of, or TV-14 kind of screen time. Something it was put on Twitter today, and right now TNT, and I guess it's no longer term sports, honestly, but TNT and TBS just lost out really big on the NBA to NBC to Comcast. Obviously, you're going to hear the da 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 back where it belongs. But in the end, it kind of hurts the worth of other products that are aired sports-wise on both TBS and TNT, whether that be the NHL, Major League Baseball, or even in this case, AEW. Now, I know here coming soon that the TNT, TBS, Fox, and ESPN sides are all coming together to create a super app for sports, which should be pretty interesting, especially if those networks get to delve a little bit more into the football playoff, the college football playoff to come, as well as other events that might be bled over into those networks. But right now, if they're willing to put you as a streaming, what's the best way to put it? As an ability to stream for less and get more eyes on your product through Max, but it's not going to be necessarily the sweetheart deal you were hoping it to be, please understand that that's not a slight on your company. And hopefully you're not trying to paint it as, oh, well, you're not going to give us what we want. We're going to go. Right now, TNT and TBS are looking to retain AEW. It might not be at the price that fans and Tony Khan hope for, but, at least they'll have something else other than their dramas and baseball and hockey. And that's not spitting out baseball or hockey, but, giving a third sports option that isn't either of those sports. And then, just to finish out the Scuttlebutt Sessions today, Becky Lynch. Y'all gotta give that woman a break. Why do I say give that woman a break? That woman, like I said, with her husband, has carried WWE for about the last half decade, last 8 years altogether. Ever since from the Revolution and Evolution to the pandemic to WrestleMania 40, when you really are starting to see the new generation that followed behind Becky and Charlotte and Bianca, or not Bianca, Bailey and Mercedes Moné and Naomi kind of start to take their spots on the pedestals of the cornerstones for this generation of WWE television. It's widely been said that Becky was working into the last couple of nights of her contract, which I believe ends on the 1st of June. Now, if she decides to go home and wants to have another child with Seth Rollins, that's her right. That woman has made a ton of money, whether it's through in-ring work, her book, video games, you name it. Even a television show that is no longer amongst us, Young Rock, has a very convincing Cyndi Lauper. If she comes back and she returns to WWE, that's her choice. If she wants to go to TNA and or AEW and build up their divisions, I mean, really the knockout division doesn't need building up. I mean, historically the knockout division is what it is. But let that woman rest. Quit worrying about who she's going to sign with or what direction she's going with. Heck, tomorrow she might just say, hey, I'm not coming back to professional wrestling in all in regards to in-ring work. That's her right. She's 36 years old. You know, she has made enough money that if her and Seth retired tomorrow, they could live pretty comfortably with what they have done for professional wrestling, regardless of where they wrestled. So, let that woman have a vacation. Quit speculating on the interwebs, the Twitters, the Facebooks about, hey, where's Becky going next? Because guess what? I'm pretty sure that Becky probably knows where she's headed next and for how much she's going to sign to be a talent for what happens next. So just let it be. Yeah, it's that. With that closing out Scuttlebutt Sessions has been said as a normal alibi here lately. Still looking for collaborations, times to put people over, interviews to do with professional wrestling talent, whether they be teachers, talent themselves, managers, referees, hell, even ring announcers. Kind of let you get your company over so that more eyes are put onto your product. Now, it's not saying you can't do it already, but, an audience that probably doesn't know who you are is more than welcome to come here and talk about what they do. As I said, I'm looking for a partner to be an effective point-counterpoint in the course of professional wrestling recordings and such. But at the end of the day, like I said, I am just a dad who is a combat veteran who enjoys him some professional wrestling and putting out my thoughts about the business. And I hope you like what I bring. If you don't, let me know. Also, going to work on getting the artwork from my good friend, my brother from another mother on the other side of the pond. Nick Meekum has completed some of the photo work for said social media and the podcast in general. I am hoping very soon to debut it here after I pay him on Friday, which is the only right thing to do. And also a friend of mine, Richard, some money, but it'll get there to him and his kiddo here soon. All joking aside, but this has been another From the Cheap Seats Wrestling Podcast episode. My name is Chris Branson. You can find me on X at FTCS podcast, or subscribe to us on YouTube here at the same name right here on the bar. Until the next time, which is more than likely Friday, this has been FTCS Wrestling Podcast. Have a great rest of your Tuesday.